All right, my friend. I started, but I'm going to talk a little bit about our featured roast of the day.
Hell yeah.
And that's not the kind of roast that you see and people say bad jokes about people and roast them. I don't know what they're called, you know, when a bunch of comedians get together. But I went to, as I was telling you the other day, we had a beautiful honeymoon and we got married in Hungary and we went to this big Trieste city in Italy. Big Trieste. This city
What's
in Italy.
Trieste? What's
Trieste.
Oh,
It's
Trieste.
Trieste.
Trieste. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it has a name they call it, like the Little Venice or something like that.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so I always wanted to go and try like a good Italian coffee shop.
Yeah.
Well, when we went to Europe, everywhere you go, you can get a good espresso. Everybody has an espresso machine, even good quality like push button machines, and like that's pretty damn good.
And it's so affordable.
Affordable, yeah.
Like €1 or €2.
So I looked up a spot and we spent like a while walking with Casey looking for this like little Italian coffee shop, and we found this place called the Roats.
Okay.
And I go in there with my 360 camera. I'm like, whoa, so many coffee makers, and talk to the Italian guy and talking about like recipes and stuff and what do you recommend for beans, and he recommended this.
Okay.
This is Sumatra Queen Cetiara Trieste Urban Roastery. He roasted it there, and
Cool.
it was actually pretty recent. So when I bought it, bless you, when I bought it, then it was roasted like a month ago. So usually when you buy freshly roasted coffee, if you want to make it for espresso, you need to wait at least a week or two for the gases to come out.
Interesting. So after you roast the coffee, you wait at least a week or two.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we are about arriving at this coffee place called Roats Trieste Urban Roastery. Let's check out what they have something to drink, and see. Hi, how are you? Great. Which bean do you recommend for espresso? Hi. Which bean do you recommend usually? Yes, I'll have one of those and I'll take that too. Okay, I got the bean, Sumatra Queen. Had the first double espresso from Roats, and was amazing. So there are a lot of ways to make coffee, and I've got books about it.
Nice.
So actually what inspired this show is kind of like the show called Hot Ones. Have you heard of it? It's where people eat increasingly spicy
I've seen
food.
little clips of this. Okay, yeah.
This is kind of similar, but with coffee.
Cool.
I got into coffee making, and I learned how to make it through an online school I attended for like months. And I read a lot of books, watched a lot of movies. I even have a roaster upstairs. I roasted 7 different region coffees. So the first season I used my own beans. But I once nearly got caught on fire, which was funny. So anyway, last year when I went to Europe, I bought so much coffee, and everyone's like, you just bring coffee. This year I had to do the same thing, and I was happy that I found this spot, and I'm going to have to show some B-roll in the video.
Sure.
Guy, I told him that I've got a podcast about coffee. He's like, what is the name of... Sorry, my friend, that's not how you sounded. But it was a great conversation.
But you like to use their hands when they talk.
And the funniest thing, we had this... I wanted to try coffee-based drinks that I can't try anywhere else.
Okay.
It's like culinary. It's like a culinary experience.
Sure. Yeah.
And I had this like orange sparkling water with a shot of espresso in it, and it was so good.
Interesting. You said orange soda water, sparkling water.
Or it was like kind of like Fanta or
Okay.
something like that, and you pour a shot of espresso, so it's combining something acidic with something else. It's similar to having a tonic espresso. Have you tried it?
No.
Tonic water with a shot of espresso,
Okay.
or Coke espresso.
Okay.
Coke with a shot of espresso.
That sounds
It sounds
great.
weird.
No, it sounds good. You got the sweet and the bitter.
Yeah,
You got a
but it
little
really
bubble.
works, and it's not really like a coffee sipper. It's more like a refreshing drink,
Yeah, like
which is
middle of
super
the summer
interesting.
day. Yeah, cool.
So, since you wanted to try this, but I didn't want to give you a very thick liquid that has very strong strength, can have two meanings. Either the concentration, which is espresso, is a very concentrated drink because it's used with 9 bar pressure, short amount of time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has the most caffeine in it.
Okay.
Caffeine is also how it means how long the water is in contact with the coffee
Okay.
beans.
Yeah.
So like cold brew is the most caffeinated.
Because it sits in that water
It
for a
sits, but
while.
it's also less acidic.
Ah.
But depends also on the roast level.
Darker roast, less caffeine. Is that normally the truth?
Yes,
Okay.
but also commercial coffees like Starbucks has different roasts than third wave coffee companies. So if you are in Nashville, let me see, Red Bicycle, they roast really good coffee. They're like a third wave coffee spot. Or
What does third wave mean?
third wave is like this motion of newborn. They're kind of like artists, you know.
Got it.
They
Okay.
they play a lot with profiles, like when you're roasting coffee, there are different stages of coffee roasting because it's a green coffee bean,
Right.
and then and it comes from a cherry.
Right.
It's a fruit, and
Right.
you know why is there caffeine in it?
That I don't know. No.
It's a natural pesticide.
Ah.
The same reason why tea has caffeine,
Protecting against
protecting against
insects.
pesticide. And
Interesting.
the lower altitude you are, the more caffeine the bean has because there are more pests. The further
That's
up the beans are
fascinating.
from, the less caffeine it has. But
Very
not
cool.
that much. But like there's Arabica beans, there's Robusta, there's 4 types of beans. But anyway, just wanted to quickly mention, my friend, I'm gonna tag you. Thank you for, well, I bought it, but thank you for making such a good coffee.
Love it.
And I'm gonna cut for now, make us coffee, and we're gonna resume. And I'm excited to have you, excited to hear your story, excited to hear where you're going, and that's pretty much it.
Happy to be here.
Alrighty. All right, Brandon.
Yes, sir.
Well, this is Caffeinated Creatives. I'm Danny Nagy, y'all's host, and I have Brendan the fucking Mills. Brendan Mills here.
Cheers, brother.
I'm glad we chose to do some coffee here.
Me too.
That's the roast again. Let's give it a try.
Smells amazing. Super well balanced.
Yeah, very fruity.
Yeah, I feel it on all areas of my
That's
tongue.
even more concentrated if you want to take a sip.
Yeah? I'm gonna be jumping off the walls here in a second. Yeah, I taste the fruit right away, and then it gets bitter towards the end.
I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about it. And depending on the kind of milk that you're using or how you're treating it afterwards, does bring out these profiles.
Very cool.
Yeah, differently. Well, Brendan, I was thinking about, the past, how we met, and
Yeah.
I remember, with my old company, we used to do meetings at a meeting room.
Yes.
We dress up, we want to try to portray to be like these big boy dudes.
Yeah, it's
Three
so funny.
knuckleheads going,
Yes.
and I saw you were a veteran, and I have a big veteran history in my family. So I'm like, hey, I listened to your music. I really liked it, and I felt a connection can be made there, and we can do something cool, genuinely.
Yeah.
And we invited you to that meeting room, three knuckleheads in a suit, and then that's how our relationship started.
I was curious, did you find out about me through Instagram? Was that what it was?
Yes,
Yes, okay, cool.
Instagram.
Cool. I was
And you know
curious.
what I saw? I saw parts of the documentary
Ah, okay,
that
cool.
led to listen to the songs
Yeah,
and made me want to reach out.
awesome. I'm glad you did. This has been
Yeah.
a long friendship.
Yes, sir.
4 or 5 years, you think?
One thing that stuck out to me is that you're somebody that wants to move forward, find different sounds, but yet your sound, I was thinking about that. Your sound is your voice, and your music kind of represents what you're going through. We had the I had the opportunity or the chance to not only do video but also do music,
Yeah.
and we've done a record that represented like going away from the military mindset and that sort of thing. I know that's just a few words, and I want you to describe that in like a few sentences, but what I'm seeing throughout the years of knowing you, that each record you put out, you work on, is always getting better and better. Musically, it's different, so you're evolving.
Thank you.
And your music, even the song that we worked on recently, it's all about healing, self forwardness, not forwardness, a forward motion, going past something, becoming a better person throughout your habits, which
Yeah.
describes you.
Thank you.
Like when I think of you, when we talk, when we walk, it's always a great experience because we talk about so many things,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
it's like we have to call like, okay, that's probably enough talking now. Let's take a little break.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
we're not gonna have voices.
Right.
But
Yeah, it's
your
always
new record, it's also different. But when I'm thinking about the Brandon Mills sound, it's your voice.
very
It's
cool.
your raspiness, and it's also, I can tell genuinely that you work hard to better that, and you're putting stuff out, which I'm really proud of.
Thank you.
I love, by the way, Brandon Mills. Look him up. He's on Patreon. I'm gonna let him say everything about his stuff, but subscribe. Anyway, so where are you coming from? What inspired you to be a musician, a singer-songwriter?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you just got money. Congratulations.
I don't know if I did, but
Ka-ching!
what inspired you to become a musician and a songwriter?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I've been asked this question more than once, and I don't know the answer. The only thing I can do is think intellectually. Is when I was in 4th grade, I went into a band room, and they said, "Hey, pick an instrument. You're going to be playing this instrument for the next 3 years if you're in band." And I was like, "All right, I want to play the saxophone." So there was always this appeal to just be a musician, and so nobody told me to do it. Nobody forced it on me. My parents are not musical. No one in my family's musical. We all love to listen to music. My dad was an avid listener, consumer of music, but he wasn't like, "Hey, direct your life this way," right? It just happened. And when I was 16, I picked up a guitar because I wanted to learn how to sing. And the moment I started singing, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is my artistic expression as a human being to the world that I love to do more than anything. I do it because I love it. It's a part of me. It's just like when I work out. It's just like when I eat well. It's just a part of my DNA. But when I think bigger as a co-creator into the universe and hopefully raising the evolution of humanity, I want to write songs that resonate with people, that kind of like meet people where they are. And it's just a reflection of what I'm going through. And I'm like, hey, let me put this down because hopefully someone will resonate with it and be like, oh, this guy is going through the same shit that I'm going through, right? And so I don't know. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that feels like the most authentic answer right now.
I mean, there isn't really a right answer or wrong answer. It's
Sure.
what's true to you,
Right.
what's your experience. And being an artist is not an easy thing. There's you have to have a lot of persistence, and you have to be called like a scientist in a way. But for a long time, I wrote a lot of songs that sometimes I didn't resonate to it because music can also be you look at it from a career, like a
Mm,
worker, and you do
yeah.
it for something, but that's, if you do it for too long, you can experience burning out from doing that. And honestly, especially nowadays when it's very easy to put songs out, it's very easy to record. Honestly, the better bet is just stick to what you know and stick to your experiences, and do what you love doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do it and you have the scientific mindset where you're like, how are people, you know what I mean?
Yes,
So you
yes,
kind of try to get these, then you will go somewhere, you know.
yes, 100%.
And I think that relatability definitely I can get from your music.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the thing that resonates with people the most is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not living an authentic life, then you're not gonna make authentic art. That, I mean, in general, right? Some people live these really tumultuous lives and write these unbelievable songs or films or novels, whatever. Um, I've noticed for me, the first person I'm creating for is myself. And I'm trying to, it's almost like a therapeutic act.
Mm.
And it's a spiritual practice for me now at this point. It's like, this is me connecting to a higher power, and it's also connecting with myself. And they coexist, right? And they're almost interchangeable at this point in my life. But if I can get into that place, then the authenticity will come. And if I can get into the authenticity, then it will resonate with other people.
It's the reason why you're doing it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it really people can really tell that, like, there's a lot of things I personally like, and the reason why I like to talk about that is the relatability, and to tell you that I understand what you're talking about. I love, like, I shoot weddings. I genuinely love it. I'm not just there to like
Cool.
have a paycheck, but I
Mm-hmm.
love capturing memories, because it
Mm.
comes down to memories, something that people can look at down the line.
Yeah.
Same thing with songs, same thing with these sort of things. And I don't know where music will go with all these like AI things, with all these like when I was a student, and I think you also studied engineering or producing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You went to school, so
I
we
did, yeah.
both went to school. So back that time there were different tools. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember I had to gather money for half a year to buy like a $600 sample library. Now you pay $20 a month and you have something even better.
Right.
So I feel now there will be different, like, people are not experiencing the same things we had to go through, but it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just also very easy to get these things. That's why I think what matters is still being a good musician.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
being that one thing is the what drives you to be an artist.
Sure.
And I know you have a lot of things that you've done as a person. You're also a veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and you also use probably music to be something that helps you, guide you through things that you went through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I said, a therapeutic healing thing for me. I was writing songs when I was in combat. I was writing songs my whole life. I still write poetry all the time to just like kind of get it out. And I was thinking about this today. I was in yoga, and I've been doing a lot of yoga. It's changed my life. But I was thinking about, I feel so good after yoga because I'm moving this energy. Emotion is energy in motion. So
Mm.
if we can move that energy and that emotion out, it becomes an artistic expression. It's also really good for the psyche, right?
Mm.
It's really good for the heart. And so these are the practices that are like a daily non-negotiable for me now, where I'm like, this is an expression and I'm moving energy, I'm getting it out, and I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it to connect, and I'm hoping it connects with other people as well.
Huh.
Yeah.
What are the things that you've developed throughout the years that makes you a better person for
Wow.
yourself?
Yeah, great question. Um, Wow, I could talk about that for like 3 hours, but for me, for sure, what's really fresh for me right now is that the acknowledgement of every thought that we give power to creates the reality that we live in. And so becoming really conscious about the thoughts that I think, and the thoughts that I give power to, right? Thoughts are only powerful if we connect to them, if we attach meaning to them, right? Because thoughts float by, all day long, tens of thousands of thoughts per day. We think 80% of what we thought yesterday, we have those same thoughts. So in order to change that, and if you want to change your reality, you have to change your thoughts. You have to become aware and conscious of every thought, and we have to decide whether this is a thought that's beneficial to give energy and focus to, or if it's something that we want to shift and change out of. That was my first thought when you said that. Physical activity for me is like one of the most important things I can do. Whether that's yoga or weightlifting or getting on the mountain bike, we've mountain biked together.
We have a funny story with that too.
we've got some good stories. Movement, sweating, those things. Who is the guy that I love? Matthew McConaughey. He says in his book Green Lights, he goes, I am a different person before I sweat, and I'm a different person after I sweat. It sounds simple. It could be a 5-minute sweat. It could be a brisk walk in the morning. It could be a hardcore hour and a half yoga session. It doesn't matter. That helps me change my chemistry, open up, really get into my body. That's really what it is. It's getting out of my head and getting back into my heart, into my body. Things that like, I'm trying to get to a place, and this sounds a little, spirit. I'm trying to make everything some type of a spiritual practice. Right, and when I do that, I'm more aware and I'm more conscious. These are the things that steer my life in a direction that I can be thankful for, grateful for, that can allow me to really hone in on the present moment, and from that, everything exists from there. Right, if we're present, if we're fully alive, we're fully present. Everything works itself out through that, right? Because we're aware and we know how to shift our focus and where our energy should go and where it shouldn't. I hope this is all making sense.
Yes, and there were a lot of things that I was thinking about while you were telling me, like the thoughts and emotions and things like that. Like, we are not necessarily who our emotions are or what our thoughts are. We are what our actions are. If I do something bad and I say sorry, but I don't do anything about it, then that's meaningless. If next day I try to make some kind of a change, then that's a positive motion towards making a change. But the thought in itself is meaningless if there is no action behind it. But also there's a lot of thoughts can also be change depending on the education or the mindsets of people. One of the things I'm grateful for when I was studying in Hungary is my teacher was aiming for us to learn how to think and question things. Not think everything is 100% true or 100% wrong. It's more or less trying to see what's right. And what's right, I mean, if I'm wrong, or if somebody tells me that I'm wrong, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's wrong. It just could mean that they're misinformed. And then the other thing is learning how to kind of have an educated discussion without emotions attached to it that results in maybe changing people's minds, beliefs. But one thing is difficult nowadays is to have a discussion that does not turn into an emotional thing where you rather just shut up and not say anything because you might be shut up by people who you can have discussions
Who
with.
gets easily offended? Yeah.
And that's what I'm afraid of, with the next generation of kids. I don't know if you want to have kids. I'd love to have kids, but I'm nervous what those kids are gonna have in the future. Like, I didn't have the best childhood, but it wasn't terrible. Like, of course, I got bullied, I got things like that, but there is always a lesson to learn, and there's always healthy ways to go around it if you have people that you look up to and they want the best for you.
Absolutely.
Learning to stand up for yourself, learning, there are these elements that betters you as a person. I don't want to go on a tangent, but what you were talking about resonated with me because of those things,
Yeah, something you tapped into, which I totally resonate with, is like staying curious, having a curious mind, not holding all of your belief systems so tightly to your point that when someone disrupts that or challenges it, you immediately have an emotional response and you feel like you're personally being attacked. I think that's something we're losing in culture and society right now, especially in the American culture, which makes sense because we are consuming a lot of media that's very divisive. It divides, and it creates this emotionally charged response. I think I'd like to go into a room, and I'm not always there. There's times where things trigger me for sure, but I'd like to be able to go into a room and have a discussion with someone I completely disagree with and try to figure out why they believe what they believe and put myself into their shoes and into their mind, have empathy and compassion, and perhaps they're going to teach me something. I think everything can be a teacher if you allow it, if you're a student, right? And so back to stay curious, be a student, educate yourself. Don't think you have it all figured out, because no one I've ever met, and I've met some really cool people who have it figured out. Be childlike in nature, be curious, stay in the wonder of it all, and you're going to get lessons your whole life, and you're going to evolve as a human being, and you're going to change your beliefs. So many of these beliefs I grew up with that were absolute truths are no longer have any truth to me, or a lot less, you know.
That is interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we've learned wantingly or unwantingly by seeing, experiencing things, and we have to put ourselves in a position, is that right, or can I evolve from that, or I thought this was true and I don't want to hold on to that being the truth, or whatever truth means,
Right.
you know, to comment on that, because there's no one way to do one thing. That's why being like a music producer or a video maker for somebody, it's such a relationship based and communication based. I'm almost always say, now I'm thinking, how can I ask better questions? How can I have better discussions? Like, we had a lot of discussions when you and I went into doing that music video, and there's no way you can't have misunderstandings, but we can have good ways of mitigating that, or not mitigating, that's not the right word,
You can show
explaining differently, or what do you mean, like, show me, you know, like,
be curious,
the better we understand how we communicate, or how we understand, you know, knowing, if you know me better and if I know you better, the better we can create something together.
I love that. Yeah.
And stuff that, like, when I look back, when I produced a lot, stuff usually got lost in the conversation somehow. Something was either assumed that I'll do it, which I don't think is good to assume. It's better to just straight up say it. I've had so many different types of personalities, and I think it's important to individually establish a way of communicating with that individual person, because there's no one size fits all.
100%.
That's why it's a difficult thing, because you have to be kind of a sponge.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. You have to be teachable.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to ask questions, clarify. And this is something that popped up when you were talking. It was like there's the way that I approach life, and especially relationships, is that I always presume positive intent. So I'm always going into this conversation or this discussion with, like, the person that I'm talking to, the person I'm connecting with, the person I'm creating with, has a positive intention behind our relationship or our conversation, whatever it is. So if I walk in with that mindset, it's going to be beneficial. You know,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of people who would take advantage of that or something.
What do you mean by that?
I was raised to be always positive and help other people and things like that, and I've experienced a lot of times people learned that and took advantage of that quality.
Yeah.
You know, and then I had to learn to kind of put not a wall, but some ways to mitigate being hurt or something like that. Because if you give away too much of you, the less you can give away to those who deserve it. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but
I hear you. I would say,
you know,
the way I would describe that is like learning how to set up healthy boundaries.
Yes.
To take care of yourself.
And I don't think I've learned that for a long time.
Does it feel better now?
It does.
Good.
Yes, it does. Because I thought I was doing stuff for the right reasons, but, like, for instance, it was when I went to Berkeley, I played a lot, and I loved it. Like I wanted to become a producer, a musician, a good musician, and then I didn't believe in myself, and I felt like with more people there, it would mean more success. But also one of the things that we all think we failed, which is really understand what the needs of three people are financially, yada yada wise. And there were no really roles, there weren't really a leader, there were so many things that weren't really applied. And I think that's kind of also part of a journey of a man, of a person. But not that I say I wish I didn't go through that, but I wish I learned some lessons sooner and I made up my decisions faster to be able to move forward and be successful. Because what I've learned that if oneself is not in a place where they can sustain themselves, and they can't really sustain three people.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest problems there. Even though I don't want to speak ill of anybody, because all three of us were very talented.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of halts and things, and we all were different personalities and different what is it called, different things we liked, which is not necessarily worse or better than the other person.
Sure.
I like to talk about that and reflect because it's a big part of me, and I don't want to diss it. And it's something that I've learned a lot from, and I'm trying to make. I don't try to halt decisions for a long time, and try to listen to people who are also outside looking at things. You know,
That's great. Yeah.
Sometimes they might know better than me.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's important to be in relationships with people who challenge you to learn how to communicate better.
Right.
When I got out of the military, I became like what they call like a lone ranger. I like kind of shut myself off from the world because I was like, if I don't have relationships, then people can't hurt me. But what I was doing was also stunting the growth of my own internal space, like on my own evolution, because I was like, the way I learn and grow and get challenged and learn how to communicate and learn how to hold space and learn how to build healthy boundaries is through relationships, right? So I applaud you for going for it and figuring it out along the way. And I think we get the opportunity to look back in regret, or we get the opportunity to look back in gratitude for everything that all the failures taught us. You know, I'm so grateful. I have messed up so many things in my life, and I'm so grateful. It made me the man I am today, right? So that's how
I agree, and that's
take it.
also mindset.
Yes.
Looking at it's adapting a growth mindset from I messed something up instead of looking at and bashing myself. How can I grow from it? What can I do? You know, I always look at what can I do better in the next wedding that I'm shooting. What can I do the next time I'm recording something? And a lot of these also I try to think of value. Like I now think of what is the value that I'm giving to X. Like if you come and hire me to do a video, what value am I giving?
I love that.
You know, what skills do I have? How do I do it? If I'm and I'm going back to what you said, it's people that also push your boundary, but it's not something that's really outside everybody where that's not you. So, for instance, if you want to do classical music, I'm not a classical musician.
Right.
So it would be not a good idea for you to hire me.
Right.
But if it's something that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone and a little bit scares me, I should do it because it'll better me as a musician. It'll better me if I go through the right motions.
Right.
You know.
Right.
What are things you think that really pushed you as a musician, and at the same time of pursuing being a musician, knowing being a musician is very hard, and a singer-songwriter. What's your strategy of just keeping yourself going?
Yeah. I've had a lot of times in my life where I wanted to quit and I quit, you know. I was like, I'm done with this. This is too difficult. But it's just I kept going back to it because I realized it's a part of my personality, it's a part of my identity as a human being. not to label myself as a musician, but to have a spiritual practice that includes music, right? And so for me, this just became as important as drinking water. It became as important as eating well and working out. Like music to me has always been like a part of the fullest expression of who Brandon is, right? So when I came to terms with that, and I started changing the language, as I used to say, I'm a performer, and now I kind of look more as like this is my offering to the world. It makes me feel better. Like I'm not performing to receive the attention and the praise of other people. I am creating as an act of worship to the divine and to my fellow humans, and with the desire that it might resonate with them, right? So that shifted for me a lot. The way I do it, the way I can still show up every day, because I've been doing this on and off for really the past like 12 years, is when I decided to say, okay, I'm going to do this for real. What shifted for me was creating a culture, a small community that is supporting me. So I've gone on national tours. You know, I've slept on couches. I've slept in the back of an RV. I've gone around and played for 12 people and maybe 120 people all over the country, and I didn't. I wasn't alive for me. It wasn't fully alive, right? So I was like, okay, can I do this differently? And just about 6 months ago, and you were a part of this, is I started the Patreon account, which is like, hey, I can do this digitally, and I can build a community where we're having conversations about music and art and psychology and spirituality, and I can just invite people into what I'm already living in, and if they feel called, they can support me financially, right? And so that feels really alive for me right now. So that it's a form of accountability almost, and it's also a form of inspiration where I'm like, these people are getting fed from me in some way, shape, or form, and I get to create because of that. And so it feels very synergistic in its relationship right now. Who knows? Of course, I'd love to go play Red Rocks and those and the Ryman, and those things are still really fully alive for me. But in the process, which was the whole song about wild dreams, is like, can I just fall in love with the present moment and enjoy what I have right now? And if those things come, great. And if they don't, I'm not any worse off. I didn't fail. I'm in the moment. I'm doing my thing. I'm proud of who I am, and I'm continuing to grow and evolve as a human and as a musician.
It's the reason again.
The reason, yeah.
It's like there are folks that work out because they want to look good, and there are
Sure.
folks who work out who want to be functional and
Right.
healthy.
Right.
And it's like I like to say that here is like a timeline, and this is one of my goals. Now let's not look at that. Let's look at these individual little passages, little
Awesome.
things that you want to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
and then that might come,
Mm-hmm.
or but not feed. excuse me, not feed yourself that I have to reach that. If I don't reach that, I'm a worse person.
Sure.
I'm not good.
A failure,
You know,
yeah.
or accepting that there are multiple things of success can mean multiple things, and it
Yes.
can also be seen in multiple ways. There are a lot of people who would want to do what me are doing at the moment.
Yes, 100%.
And there's a lot of and we imagine or we see ourselves doing something else in the future, but I know that there are people who want to do what I'm doing, who want to do what you're doing. So where we are is could be somebody else's goal, So focusing on like the small steps and not being clouded by I must reach this because if I don't, and sometimes it's okay to take a break. It's okay not to do something. There was a time I couldn't even touch my guitar for a while or play music because I was just not at the time and place, or I was what's the word? I had no motivation.
Motivation, yeah.
And when I was in that, I was searching for something else to search for that motivation, that passion back.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I'm a worse person. Or you need, as a person, as a human being, I think you need some breaks from certain things sometimes.
Absolutely.
To also get past certain bad habits or heal from things.
And to get re-inspired, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I took a month off Well, this was about like 2 or 3 weeks. I flew to Vietnam 3 years ago. We went on a motorcycle trip, and I purposely, consciously did not bring a guitar because I was like, well, if I take that, I feel like I need to work. And I just let it go. And I came back so excited to play music, and I had written a bunch of poetry that eventually turned into songs. But having that break and not having that, I was talking to my friend, he's a coach of mine, my mentor of mine, Mike Bledsoe. We were talking yesterday. We because I told him there's some areas in my life where I'm really disciplined and there's some areas I'm not. And he was talking about like the driving motivation instead of like outside validation, like from other people or culture, society, like personal inspiration, So just wanting to do what I want to do to better myself as a human being. And that codependent relationship about like how I look to other people as opposed to just doing it for myself. And so it really launched in me, it kind of ignited something of like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the motive in that, right? And so getting back to a place, sometimes you do have to take a break because you realize, oh, I'm just doing this to impress other people. I'm just doing this to validate myself through other people's opinions of me, right? So getting rid of that, I think, is a lifelong process, and it's also incredibly liberating, right? So that's my goal moving forward.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot to think about those. Yeah. 'Cause do you feel good because other people validate you?
Right.
Or do you feel good because you genuinely are happy about what you're doing and you can disregard other people's thoughts?
Exactly.
See, I've heard an interesting term. You're either a creator or you're either a commenter. So like you if you create or when you create, there'll always be people who will say shitty things.
Always.
I remember the first time I was getting a lot of views for my big band videos. There were people who were commenting some ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Shit, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm like, why would they even say that? But when you create, you can't please everybody.
Sure.
So it's like, how do you then separate yourself from not feeling shitty when you come across with somebody? It's also self-validating and knowing, yes, I'm doing something good. The haters will be haters, like the saying.
Yeah.
Like you can always say bad shit, but what's the reason really?
Right.
Like if you have nothing good to say and you only can say bad things, then that really does not do anything.
Right.
Which that's why I say you're either a creator or a bullshit commenter.
I like that. That's cool. Yeah.
The commenters don't do anything new really.
I can't imagine spending my time criticizing other people's work. Like, what? How broken are you as a human being? And I've been broken, but I've never really criticized or condemned somebody for expressing themselves, right? And I guess I've been lucky in that way. I'm like, I celebrate people's creation and expression, even if it's weird, or even if I don't understand it, or even if I don't like it. I'm like, hell yeah, the dude's doing something to express themselves in a way that feels alive for them.
Yeah.
I'm on their team. I'm rooting for them, I think that's great. Yeah. And I think from a place, and you and I can both relate to this, creative expression is vulnerable because it's open to rejection and criticism. So when I see someone taking that courageous act to express oneself, I'm like, I'm behind you. I'm like, do your thing, man, because it takes some guts. It takes some balls to do it. And it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's equivalent to having hard conversations. You're having hard conversations. You go through these emotions of, oh my God, how are they gonna act? What is that gonna become? Big emotional thing. It's kind of like that. You put yourself out as a creator. You do something, and you hope you find your group of people. Which I love that you started doing that Patreon.
Thank you.
Because you're focusing more on building your own community.
Yes.
As even though it's so easy to put out songs, Spotify full of songs. I see that you have a great or something that seems to be working, and you have a plan. Okay, I admire you because you keep doing. One of the things that I think keeps musicians, artists from succeeding is overthinking and overworking something.
Totally.
And I've produced probably a few thousand songs, if not
Wow.
more.
Yeah.
A lot of artists
Yeah.
and great songs.
Sure.
And a lot of times there are just too many opinions that go into the pot.
Mm-hmm.
How can I say it? If you believe in what you're doing, and B, you're paying somebody to help you do it, then it's really that group, and you just gotta say I say they're your soldiers.
Yeah.
Your music, your visual art, whatever
My tribe.
you're doing, they are working for you,
Yeah.
and you gonna look in a big scheme of things, not 1 month, not 2 week, and I could be wrong, but this is just my thought. You look at, this is what I've done for a year. What has it brought me?
Mm-hmm.
And if it has not brought me what I wanted, then how can I tweak that?
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
that's why I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Because your sound, it didn't change because it's your voice is your sound. Your production, it's great. Like, I love who you're working with.
Thank you.
I love what we did, but you're not that person anymore. You evolve in that sense and visually. And what I love is that there's a lot of connection there. Like, even Don't Mistake has connections in the sense of mindsets to these songs. You know, like the forward motion, betterment, self love, introspection, and things like that. I think a lot of these things are you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, they are you.
They are. Yeah. They
And I don't know what my poem was gonna be.
Maybe the authenticity and to your point, I was discouraged as an artist. I'm like, oh, I'm just throwing things up on Spotify for nobody to listen to, and a few thousand people would listen to it, and that's cool. And at the same time, I'm like, I think there's so much noise in our culture right now, and that's just how it has become. And it's hard to cut through all of that noise. But I was like, what I can do is create a small community that's interconnected with each other and myself and my music, and start building that way. And it's only been up for a few months, and the response has been really humbling. It's been really cool. So many people just like, yeah, dude, I want to see more of this. I want to feel this. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to support you with a few dollars a month to almost like coffee, to to have an engaging conversation, or to reflect, or to absorb, or to just entertain, and my music and my community is starting to build, and it feels really good. It feels authentic, and it feels what's truest for me, because me sleeping on a van floor is really not realistic for me. That's not the highest expression of me now. Maybe when I was 21, that could have been a different story.
Is that really, do you think that's still, a lot of famous musicians, a lot of people had that story of,
Yes.
oh, I was,
Yes.
I don't know what question I'm trying to formulate at all.
I think it works for some people, but it doesn't have to be the only way.
True.
And I think what I had to get really clear with was, why do I keep assuming that this is the only path towards success? Where can I challenge that? Where can I be really honest with myself and really challenge the things that were fed as like, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. You got to grind out, playing shitty bars for 10 years and then you're going to get your break. That worked for a lot of people, and mad respect for them. I have so much respect for those artists. It doesn't have to be my path.
You're right. I think that's where what comes to my mind is efficiency. Is that you can build a house and it can take 10 years.
Right.
Or you find good tools, like us as creators. Like, I'm going to say a personal example because that's what I can draw from. Video editing and things like that. Like, you can sit a lot on it, but you can also find other tools that can lessen that load and make it faster. Now, the question is, does the work lose its value? Should I be charging less or the same, but because I found the way to do it faster, it's now more better worth for me to do? Now, we're going into different questions of value, because in Nashville and a lot of places, musicians are not well paid.
Well paid, yes.
Not well paid.
Yes,
thank you.
Agreed.
A lot of people, there's a lot of musicians, there's a lot of people that can do what we can do, but actually I take that back. There's a lot of people that can do something that's expected. But not a lot of people can do you. Not a lot of people can do me. Not a lot of people. That's where individualism comes in.
Sure.
but music is not really looked at like a chef or like a Uber's. I don't. Uber's probably not a good example, but like it's a service still. Like
Right.
you're an entertainer.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, and I think that should be changed. People should have at least a minimal amount because you still have to thousand some dollars,
Yeah.
thousand some dollars. Lessons. You invest in yourself, invest in instruments, gas, learning time, excuse me, learning music. You know, how is it that we're living in such a big music city and musicians are still not treated as like a, you know, better?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think the infrastructure changed through streaming. Like people, we used to buy CDs. There was a $20 investment. Those musicians made a lot of money through their investment of recorded arts. Now, the expectation, the psychology has shifted where people expect music to be free, and the only way, the majority of the finances that musicians now make are through live performances. The problem with that is not everybody can sell out a national tour, even with 100 people in the audience. You know, I have fan bases in certain areas of the states, but it's not like I can go to New Mexico and sell out a small venue there. So I think I think there's an odd expectation in culture that entertainment needs to be cheap or free. And unfortunately, the culture of musicianships the culture of music that I've experienced has allowed that to become the normal expectation of conversation. That's part of the reason I started the Patreon, because I was like, I would like for you guys to invest in me a little bit while I create this stuff, because it costs a lot of money and it's a big energy commitment, right? So my desire with this is to inspire people, young musicians, artists of any kind, to be able to find their own culture, subculture, tribe within the 7 billion people on earth that want to invest and be a part of that and build it up that way. That's the only thing that makes sense to me right now.
One thing I wish, and it could be something that I didn't think at the time. I know we both went to school and we studied music.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I wish I was taught more is musician equals business, in how to run your business and how can you make money.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do a lot of things,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
As I came out being really good, but really good what does it really mean?
Right.
It doesn't really mean that you can now make a lot of money.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. If that, it depends on what success, what the meaning of success is, but making money is what I'm pretty sure most of the musicians are hoping to do.
We'd like to eat well and have a house or an apartment at least to like create in and sleep in, right? So yeah, I don't.
Basic needs.
Basic needs, yeah, yeah. There's a great book by Ari Hurst, how to make it in the new business, how to make it in the new music business. But he talks about that. He talks about like you need to get really comfortable with wearing two hats. So I have a job as well, so I don't rely on Patreon fully yet, although that is my goal. I have another job that supplements my income, but he goes, perhaps you're just going to have to do two things. If you want to be a creative, you're also going to have to be whatever, a barista, a videographer, whatever that is. So I don't know. I don't know how all of this works. And it's unbelievable because I've been all around the world. I've seen world-class talent from hundreds, if not thousands of musicians. And there's only like 5 to 10% that are actually making their majority of their income through art. You know, so it's this tricky thing, and I think I've just come to terms with it. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. I'm shifting my business plan, but I'm also okay that maybe I will have a job for the rest of my life, and I'll do music as well, and I can learn how to balance that. I don't know. I think about this stuff all the time because it's like some of these people, they quit their job. They saved up just enough money to quit their job for a year, and then that's all they did was music, and then they started to see the fruits of that commitment, right? And other people did the same thing and nothing came of it. And other people wrote one song and it became an overnight success. So there's no equation for this. That's where the mystery of this human experience I get kind of lost in. And I'm really just learning how to accept it and just show up every day as an authentic human being and as an authentic creator and creating just for the sake of creating.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's something I want to listen back and think about. I agree. You read a book from Rick Rubin a lot,
I do.
right?
It's an amazing book.
And
Yeah.
I always check your posts 'cause it's either something that you read or it's some hiking. I already know this is gonna have to be a part 2 or something
Sure, I'd love to.
because there's so much that you can offer and so
Thank you.
many things I think we can talk about.
I'd love to, yeah.
But he has some very interesting points, and I think he talked about something along the lines of collaboration. If something is not working out, then you reach the end of a collaboration. I can't remember the entirety of that quote. And then he talked about that exact thing, like if you're an artist, have something that supplements it so that you're not, you can somehow, what was the quote? And that wasn't the Rick Rubin quote, but
It blew my mind. He did talk, which blew my mind. That whole book blew my mind, but this one really stood out to me. He goes, if you're lucky, your art is not your sole source of income. And I was like, wait, what? Because his whole life has been, his art has created the life that he lives now. And he gets paid really well for it. Although he talks about not worrying about the finances ever. It's just not in his mind, which mad respect to him. I've never been able to.
I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah, I think you got to be a really unique individual to not think about finances when you're creating. Although at the end of the day, the best creations are not motivated by finance. They're motivated by
That's true,
creation.
but there's the need.
There's a need to feed
I have
yourself
to
and
pay
feed
a
your
lot,
family.
unfortunately, for going to Berkeley,
Sure.
even though I got a lot of scholarship.
Yeah.
And I have
yeah.
to probably pay for another 7 years.
Yeah,
and
wow.
it's not a little amount.
Sure.
And
You'd like to be rewarded for all that hard work.
yes, but also just because I went there, I can't expect that to be an end result.
Also true. Yes.
Yes. And I think a lot of it has to do with marketing and what I thought I would end up at when I went. 'Cause they were a good school. I did become pretty good, but did I need it? Nowadays, I'm going to be controversial. There's so much information out there. There's so many people that you can go and learn. It's all about who knows you and who knows you. If somebody knows you and you can play the part, they're going to hire you. It's a relationship-based industry.
Definitely.
Nobody hired me just knowing, oh, you went to Berkeley? I'm going to hire you. Great job.
Right. Right.
Nowadays, it doesn't matter. And
Sure.
I will not do that. I will not take up that much in student loans because it's stupid.
Yeah.
You could be the studio. You could go shadow musicians. You could learn so much. I mean, I knew a lot even before going to Berkeley. Now, I guess the only thing I can do is I started with this guy just for my own ego, but who cares really?
Sure.
I mean, I started with Grammy award-winning guitar players or people that taught like, I forgot their name, but whatever. But what good does it really at the end do for me? Nothing really.
Sure.
It's just show off, but show off isn't going to make me money.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Nowadays, I don't know if it's that necessary to go to an educational school and spend that much amount of money in it.
I would agree.
You know.
That's part of the motivation I went to the military was to not have to pursue a passion and get educated in that passion and have to spend money and start my life out in debt. I was like, that doesn't sound like a good
Did you
trade.
use the GI Bill?
I used the GI Bill, yeah.
I used the GI Bill too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad transferred to me, that paid for my accommodation.
Cool.
And I got like, I don't know, 70 or 75% of the what it cost.
Okay.
Still, it was,
Cool.
I probably have to pay around $1,600 every month
Wow.
for just school.
Wow.
Yeah, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So when
Yeah,
you
it is a
come
lot.
out of it, how can you not think about not earning money?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also unfair to rely on family for so long. And I'm grateful that I get help, but I also want to utilize these talents, whatever I know.
Yeah, your skill set and
Yeah.
the things you worked hard to understand and study. So yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's a deeply complex, chaotic, you know,
Yeah.
challenge of trying to express yourself artistically and make finances from it. I'm so blessed to have a really cool job that pays well and allows me freedom to create when I'm not working. But it's all for me. It's all part of the journey, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm moving towards something that I want to become that's greater than what I'm experiencing now, but I'm very, very content in my current state of mind and my current state of life because I've chosen to express gratitude through all of it and that it's all working out for me. I still believe that. You know, I tell people I'm an aggressive optimist.
You gotta be. You gotta be your own number one fan.
100%.
I think. I mean, it's funny when I would record a song, I would listen to so much I grew for it, and people were like, "You're so self-centered." I'm like, "Well, you got to do what you're doing, don't you? Like,
Enjoy
you gotta like and love and be passionate about yourself. Because
Yeah.
if you're not, then who else is gonna be?
Yeah.
You know, or how
Yeah.
can you expect other people will be?" I've got
100%.
some weird comments, you know, and it's crazy
Good
because
for you.
I am. Not in a good sense.
Oh.
In a way, like some people thought that I'm on drugs because I'm a
Ah.
high, like a very energetic dude, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not even drinking. Like I
Yeah.
don't even do any of that.
Right. Right.
You know, I just love doing it.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah,
something I admire about you. That you have this like childlike excitement towards your
I think it's important.
process. It is. I think
It's
I think
important,
it's very important.
and working towards keeping that because I think a lot of the things that we have, we're renting it, and we have to keep working for it, like
Mm-hmm.
our health, our body, our success, and all
Yeah.
these stuff. If
Yeah.
you lose something and you don't do it, you are what you continuously do.
Yes. Everything is a practice.
Yeah.
You know, what are you practicing on? Where are you putting your energy and your efforts? And like that's what I love about yoga. It's like it's a where I'm practicing yoga. I'm not working out and calling it yoga. I'm practicing yoga. I'm showing up daily as a different person. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but it's always the discipline of showing up is where the freedom lies. Self-discipline is one of the highest forms of self-love. You know, and choosing to make those decisions when they're uncomfortable and challenging and not fun. That's when the growth happens, and that's when I can go to bed and be like, "This was a good day," whether I made money or not. I said yes to the things that were important to me. You know?
What inspires you, and what are you looking forward to do as an artist?
Yeah. There are some producers that I'm like really that I just value so much, and they're at a really high echelon of influence and finances, and they're hard to get a hold of. Those are the types of people. I'm trying to write songs that I hope that I can present to these people and say let's cut an album together. So, you know, I want to continue to grow my fan base through Patreon. Still build that community, have that really healthy, energetic exchange of you know some people investing into my life and my art, my creations, and me investing into their lives through my art and through my artwork. Ideally, I mean, there's a few artists that I follow on Instagram, and they have created a completely sustainable life as an independent artist. There've been people that have found them through social media, which is a blessing and a curse, and they're able to go and tour on bigger venues because of that. That's my long-term goal. I'd like within the next 5 years, I'd love to be touring, medium to large size venues, selling out, multiple 20, 30, 40 cities throughout the country. I forgot what your question was.
Where do you draw inspiration from, and how do you keep yourself fresh, whatever the word means to you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
As an artist.
I stay curious.
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time meditating on the gratitude that is available for us. I mean, I think for me, if you can express everything through a sense of gratitude and joy, your life's going to be rich. And as a result, you're going to be able to take things in that you can transform into art as a result. So that's a great question. Stay hungry, stay curious, stay childlike, ask questions, be present, absorb the present moment, create art out of that.
How many records have you done in the past 4 years?
4 years, I've done 4 EPs.
4 EPs. We've done one,
Yep.
and you've done a couple.
Yep.
How would you describe? It's gonna be a hard one. If you were to use one word for each of them, how would you describe them?
The projects themselves?
Yeah. It's like this record. Let's say the one we've done with Invisible Heroes.
Yeah.
That-
Wow. These are great questions.
How do you describe it? And are you looking in introspectively? This is what I went through, and this is what the word that could describe me as an artist. That I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
And then you had another record. So
Yeah, so my first record I did was in New York City. That record was like playful. I would say playful. I was in college, you know, I was just having fun. I recorded it in my friend's apartment. We had a blast doing it, although I was highly insecure at that moment in my life, but it was playful. The second one, I would say...
which one was the second one? Not the one we did?
I think I'm trying to think.
We did My Hero.
Right.
Front Lines.
Yeah.
Don't Mistake. That was a while ago.
That was...
Kind of.
I can't remember if that was the second or the third one. I don't know why I can't think of this right now. I think that was my second one. So that would have been with you guys. That would... What would I say that? Empowering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I remember you were experimenting with the singing, rapping.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that like Dermot Kennedy.
Yeah.
I remember so much of that.
That was fun.
Great. It was fun.
That was a fun album to
That
cut.
was. And we
Yeah.
had I was talking to my friend Benny because we hired my friend Benny
Yeah,
in Hungary to play the drums.
Yeah,
He
that's
loved
right.
that record.
Oh,
He's so
cool.
humble. He wants to meet you one day.
Oh, I'd love to meet him, man. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I would love that.
We had some really good songs, and you had another fellow Berkeley guy played horns in one
That's
of the
right.
songs.
That's right. Max Ribner. Yep.
And then we had what was that band? Kind of like Imagine Dragons, so like big meets like I don't know.
It was like simple songs, but we like put a lot of production behind it, and a lot of them pumped. They were fun.
You reminded me of nationalism. I don't know.
Patriotism.
You know what?
maybe?
Patriotism. Thank you.
Cool.
That's the word I
Cool.
meant.
Yeah. Oh, I'll take that. That's
I think
fun.
that's a good word.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In a way, you're coming up from a grave as a better man.
Yeah, for sure.
The rebirth.
There was a death and a resurrection, and
Yeah.
and I had to let a lot of things go and really re-identify myself.
And then you had we did the two other music videos, which were I don't know why I'm blanking
So we
on
did
the
My Hero
titles.
2, and we did Just Be Kind. Remember those two?
Oh yes, the driving one with your
like
brother.
that was like my third EP. Man, what would I call that? That was like, I don't know. There was a lot of love in that one. I would just call it like loving. That album was like my dedication to myself, learning how to love myself better, learning how to love other people better, giving props to the people in my life that I adore, that I wrote.
Homage to others.
Homage to others. Yeah, well done. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's good.
Because that's the best I can come up with. That was a beautiful record. You sang about your brother, your childhood. You just found you had another brother, which is crazy.
Right.
Crazy story.
Right. Yeah.
And then the Understand My Love. That was a great video. It was some funny 2 days, man. I remember I was calling people. I want to record at a boxing gym, and that morning at 4 a.m. I'm like, I'm sick, barfing. I'm like, yeah, but we had all these things, and then the guy came in and was still barfing while we were recording. I'm like, jeez, Louise.
I love that we made that happen, dude. That was fun. That was fun. I put that on Patreon. I got so many like laughs out of that. People were like, "This is hilarious." And the quality was fun too.
Thank you.
It was a good time, man. And that was the thing is like I was writing all those serious songs, but I love to joke around. I love to laugh. I've got this pretty crazy, military sense of humor, which is kind of, It is what it is. So I was like, well, let's have fun with this stuff. These songs are kind of serious. Like, let's just make the videos as funny and weird as possible. And I think we were successful in that.
Those two videos both were really funny. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, that was probably the first time I was shooting on a Sony mirrorless.
Yeah.
I spent like days digging into how to use everything.
Oh,
It's
that's
just a
awesome,
funny
dude.
story.
Yeah.
I was on a, because I wasn't that, I didn't have that good of a gear, and that kind of trigger like, okay, I'm gonna go and invest in better gear. And then I think like a year after is when I got into weddings. I don't even remember, but that was a big major part of like a shifting gear and having better quality stuff.
Well, I'm glad I could inspire that in
Well,
you, bro.
thank you. It was a really cool thing, and Maxwell was a
Yeah.
great choice of character
He
for
was awesome.
you.
I still follow him, dude. He's doing some cool stuff.
He's a funny guy,
Yeah,
man. That
he's
was a
all over
good
that.
shoot.
This was a
All
lot of
that
fun.
vaudeville or the slapstick
Yeah,
humor.
like Charlie Chaplin kind of vibe.
Yeah,
That was fun. Really fun.
And then all the other like boxing references and things. Like I remember working on these things is also not this. It's a progress.
We had spent a lot of time
Yeah.
conceptualizing it, coming up with the treatment of like how do we make this funny but quality, and that was fun. I love doing this stuff, and that I go back to it all the time. I'm like, if I had an unlimited amount of resources and I never had to work again in the day of my life, what would I do? I'd be making these videos and making songs. So like the fact that I even get to do that right now is like already success to me. I
It
get to do what I
is.
love.
It is. I'm grateful for doing it.
Yeah, same.
I'm grateful.
Same.
I always try to offer value, better myself first, and then better things that can better me.
I love it.
That can offer value.
Yeah.
That's how I view it. Same with guitar, same with everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that all helps if you're looking at it from a value point of view rather than how much can I now charge,
Right. Well, I've it's been awesome to watch your progress as an individual and as a professional, as a creative. It's awesome. It's inspiring and it's encouraging, man.
Thank you. I love doing it. It is a lot of work, but
Yeah. We're passionate about it.
nothing that you want to establish is little work, I've been wanting to do this show for a long time, and I'm grateful and I'm happy that I started early this year.
Cool.
And it's been growing, it wasn't like this. It was just one camera, not even microphones. So I try not to aim for perfection, but progress.
Love it.
And I used to be very perfectionist. You can do the best you can at the moment, but it doesn't mean that that's where you're growing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean. Tell me
What
more.
I mean is like, I aim to do the best work at the moment. Like now, if I fuck up, I fuck up. This is what it is. But I get the best. Like I put effort into it. I do genuinely a good job.
Yes.
And then that progress, I'm always gonna learn what is it that I can do differently, better. Like I had some weddings where I was not only the videographer but the photographer. So I was running around like this. I'm like, oh crap, that's actually very heavy work. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get this that helps me. Also educating yourself. What is it that can help me? I don't know how that's connected to what I said.
The evolution. You're evolving through work. You're evolving through the process.
Evolution versus. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I did my second solo record, first I spent 100 takes on a guitar solo.
Wow.
And which one did I choose? The third take.
The third.
If you get too much into every single detail, it will give you the opposite.
Analysis paralysis is what they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get over. Yeah, I hear you.
I'm thinking now what I do is I try to make a choice as fast as possible and live with it. Even if at the end I'm like, could have made a better choice.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I know a lot of the magic is in the first few takes.
Yeah.
I've got a guy who's award-winning producer. You get 6. 6 is the max he'll do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you show up, and it also makes you show up differently, I think. If you have 100 takes, you might not show up the same way in the very first take. If you only got 3 takes, like I think you're more present to it. You're more alive in it.
One other thing that I can think of when I think of you is you're multi-layered. You are a musician, but you're an entrepreneur. You're no, I don't know who knows that, but you are also an actor.
Yeah,
Is
okay.
that something that I can say?
You could say that. I don't know if I would agree.
You funny. You also you're what is it called? A property owner. So you have to me you think a lot about how can you make investments that can allow you to do certain things. You have this entrepreneur mindset,
Yeah.
spreading out,
Yeah, thank you.
and I think that's a very important mindset to have. What
Thanks.
would be some tip or some sort of something you would tell new musicians? What would be some pieces of advice for better success?
Yeah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I would tell them that they need to learn how to love themselves. And they need to learn how to love themselves without any outside influence. That's the most important thing
Mm,
I've ever discovered, and I'm still very much in that journey of self-love. Because after that, everything after you learn how to love yourself is just almost like minuscule. You're like, okay, cool. If I get to, if I get signed to Sony, that's cool too. But I really love myself, so my identity is not wrapped up in my performance or my accolades of getting signed or getting a certain amount of streams or something. This whole productivity obsession that we have as a culture. So that would be number one. Number two is like take care of your mental health, take care of your body, take care of the things that you have. Treat them with love and respect. I think that has a lot to say. That says a lot about how you show up in the world. Have fun with it. I was so serious for so many years in my life. When I got out of the military, I was so rigid. I was like, it has to be done this way. It has to be done this way. And I called it discipline and I called it, militant, but it was really just, it was suffocating. So have fun with it. Show up. This is something that changed for me. This is the last thing I'll say about that. When I started showing up to create, believing that there was a higher entity, a deity, God, whatever you want to call it, infinite intelligence, that wanted to create with me, all I had to do was show up. And then I was like, all right, I'm co-writing, and it made it more fun. It wasn't like, I got to write a fucking song today. It was like, I get to write a song. I get to listen. I get to tap into the frequency that is the divine, and I get to express and create with her, And I think that just changed everything for me. It became a lot more fun. It took a lot of the pressure off of myself.
who are people that you look up to? Who is somebody you go to for advice if you need advice?
Personally, or like bigger? There's
Either.
okay. There's a guy named Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's an expert in like neuroscience. He's radically changed my life. He has three books out there that I highly recommend. You Are the Placebo. The habit of breaking the habit of being yourself and becoming supernatural. He taught me how to become aware of my thoughts, and that my thoughts dictate my reality, and how to change my reality through my thoughts. And it's way deeper than that, but that's like the general thing.
What inspired you uh, to search these books?
Man.
What was the thing that I want to read these. I want to be in that journey.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you need a person who can guide you, can give. It's like a mentor
Yes.
figure
Yes.
in somebody's life.
Yeah.
Because I might not know what I need, and I might hesitate to do it, but maybe that person will go through my thick skull.
Yeah. Well, so the same reason I create is because there are people who have created, and I want to absorb that creation so it inspires me to be a better human being. I've always been a seeker. I've come to terms that I've always been a seeker, even since I was young. I'm curious. I'm hungry for the divine. I'm hungry for the optimizing, living my human experience the most fully alive. And to do that, I need inspiration. I need people to guide me. I need people to inspire me. I need people to challenge me, to teach me. And so that's just like another one of those non-negotiables. Is like, I'm always reading something. Like, teach me something. I want to learn. I want to evolve. Because I've been in short seasons where I wasn't learning anything, and they were fucking boring. I was
When's your book
bored.
coming out?
A
I
lot
could
of people have
foresee a
asked me.
Brandon
Yeah.
Mills book.
Thank you, man. I don't know. I don't know. That's a few years off, I think.
Reminds me, you remind me a little bit of, what's this guy's name? He's an athlete. He lost like 300 pounds to get into the
David Goggins?
David Goggins. I listened, because I'm not much of a reader, but I'm a listener. That's how I learn and viewing.
Sure.
His book is phenomenal,
I've
and
listened to it
the
as well.
lessons are more story based than experience based. And I feel like you have a lot of experiences that has some kind of a life lesson embedded in it.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I should start a blog or something to just kind of start getting these
Or
stories
your own
out.
podcast, the Brandon Mills Show.
That would be fun.
Hey, wink, wink.
That would be fun. I would love to interview musicians or just creatives and ask them about their creative process.
What do you hope people can find in your music when they listen to it?
Hope?
Yes. What is your mission?
No, that's one of the things
Oh.
I want them to find.
I thought you were just saying what I said. Oh, that was funny, dude.
Well, I don't know if I said it because you said it first, but that is a theme. So hope, grace, empowerment, love, forgiveness, joy.
Joy.
You know, I want people
It
to.
is joy. So I listened to that song, Valerie. It's beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
These songs, I also had the chance of doing visuals for with you. Beautiful songs.
Thank you so much.
Very moving. Everybody I showed it to loved it, and
Thank you, man.
they all said that the two visual and audio are like married very nicely together.
I agree. I agree with them.
You know, and
Yeah.
I think we did a good job there.
We absolutely did.
You know. Wow. So the big question, where can people find you, and what is it that the Patreon people, folks on Patreon who subscribe to your channel, what is it that they see different than folks who don't?
Yeah. So I go into a lot more on Patreon. I go into a lot more of like the behind the scenes, how I get through my creative process. Some of them. It's like you're in the room with me in the studio. You're seeing how I operate. You're seeing my workflow. Some of it is just like how I conceptualize these songs or how they came to be what they are today. And then I haven't done this yet, but I did promise that that I would do some live streams on there. You know, so it's just it's a glimpse into my life in a way that people like on social media don't get to see that. It's a more almost like that meet and greet that a lot of artists do. They meet people before the show. That's kind of like me letting them backstage into my life and the things that I don't show on social media that I'm more open to show to my fan base. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. How can people find you? How can people support you?
Yeah. So the only platform, social media platform that I'm active on is Instagram. And my handle there is Brandon Mills Music. What I'd love for people to do if they feel called or inspired by this conversation or feel inspired by my music, to support me on Patreon. Patreon is a crowd-funded platform where people can just pay a small amount every month and just kind of support the journey that I'm going through, and that I ideally can support and inspire them in their life. You know, so that's patreon.com/Brandon Mills Music.
Who do you think should I had a good thought there, but I'm trying to think how to phrase the question. Phrase?
Yeah, that's right.
Phrase, yeah.
Phrase.
Who are you trying to reach?
I think anyone that wants to better themselves, anyone who wants to connect with the spiritual aspect of life a little more, anyone who needs a little love and support along their way, because life can be hard, you know. I really want to inspire people.
If I go on your Patreon, I'd love to see some of your morning routines shown fully.
Cool.
I mean, you are, one word is self betterment.
Thank you.
And I want to know in more at length, what is it that you do?
Cool.
I mean, whether or not that this can be part of the podcast or not, that's something that comes to my mind.
I would love to do
Brandon Mills as a part of the subscription, what folks get that when they subscribe.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, I very much appreciate you coming, and I know there's a lot more to talk about, but there's also the time span of people.
Yeah.
If you have anything else you want to mention, this is your camera.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you for what you're doing,
I try.
and I thought it was a beautiful conversation. So, I don't know what to say. I think we've said everything that needs to be said.
What are you excited about in the next few weeks?
Yeah. I moved my studio from this tiny little side guest bedroom into the master bedroom.
You told me you would.
So excited about it because it's like I'm
Nice.
dedicating more energy and space, literal space, and more energy into like the creation of art, and that feels very alive for me. I'm going to Colorado in a few weeks to be with my partner. We're going out to Red Rocks to see a sold out
Nice.
show. I love to be out in the mountains. I'm inspired. I'm writing new songs. I'm inspired to share them. I've got 5 more songs from this latest EP that I just cut that we're going to be releasing, Danny and I, aesthetically and sonically. And I'd love for you guys to be a part of it. So much love, much respect. Do you. Be real. Be authentic. And learn how to love yourself. That's it.
That was Caffeinated Creatives. I was your host, Danny Nagy, with Brandon Mills. Thank you so much, brother.
Hell yeah. Appreciate
Go
you.
and support Brandon, okay?
right.
Y'all, if you're not, gonna find a militia and hunt you down. Just kidding. Cut.
Cut.